basically when you breathe in and then you breathe out, and you try to breathe out for as many counts as you possibly can. So it's like inhale and then exhale, and then just push it out for as long as you can, because this helps quickly calm stress and anxiety. So if you're feeling really stressed at the moment, or you're anxious, it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to be around a bunch of people and you're really not sure, how that's going to go, and just like really super anxious, that one is really good for that. Then there's one that is called the heart centered breath. And basically, you just kind of put your hand over your heart, and then you just breathe slowly and into the chest space, and allowing the breath to fill the chest space. And, so you inhale and you exhale. And this helps kind of reconnect you to your heart, to what you're feeling. Because since we are disconnecting, sometimes we feel like we're not allowed to feel those feelings, or sometimes the feelings are just so overwhelming that we don't want to feel them. But in order to truly be able to move forward and keep going, we do have to feel them on some level. So doing that allows you to feel those emotions without overwhelming yourself. So that's one of the reasons I like that one. Then there is the sigh breath, which I absolutely love this one. I give this one to my clients all the time, and this one's really good for like releasing just like the negative energy, or you're not really releasing all of the grief, but it's like all that pent up, just I just gotta let it go. And you just basically just inhale through your nose, and then you do a long open mouth big sigh exhale, and it's like blowing out all of that pent up stuff. So that is actually one of my favorites. Literally, you just go, and then it's like if you're like blowing on a mirror after taking a shower, and you're like and you're writing in it. You're just
Mm.
kind of using that to just exhale all of that pent up excess energy, emotion, or whatever it is that you just need to release in that moment, because the body knows, even if you don't know what's going on and what needs to be released, the body knows what needs to be released. All you got to do is just give it that mechanism. So I find that one to be really good when you just you don't know what's going on. You know you need to release something, so you just release it.
And do you make
And
a
then of course there's
sound with that too? Because I was thinking of there's a practice where you breathe in, and then
mhm.
when you breathe out, you make a loud sound, like a big exhale sound, like you blow
Yeah,
it out.
that's yeah. Big sigh sound. Yeah, whatever that means for you. So when I'm using that with clients, sometimes I just have them, to just do it like they're breathing on the mirror. Sometimes I tell them to just let it all out as audibly as possible, and then whatever that feels like for them. Because some people, it's like they're letting out a scream. Others, it's just like so whatever it is for them, again, the body knows. But yeah, audible sounds, absolutely. Yeah. So,
And I love how you say that the body knows, because it really is. The body remembers.
yes,
And
yes,
the body holds so much more than what we actually um, believe that it does.
it does. It does. There's actually a really good book, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Mm.
And it talks a lot about that, because even if we don't remember everything mentally, our body remembers absolutely everything. And grief and trauma and those types of things, and heavy emotions, they all get stored in the body. That's one of the reasons why I specialize the way that I do, because I feel like that's a piece that everybody misses, is that there is so much connectivity between mind, emotions, and body. And many times when you have things that are going on in the physical body, there's an emotional anchor. And grief is one of those things that does get stored in the body, and it affects the physical body. You think that it just affects your emotions and it affects your mental state, but it also affects your physical state as well. In particular, one of the reasons why breath work works really great for dealing with grief is because grief is one of the types of emotions that gets stuck in the lungs.
Mm.
It often affects our lungs, which is going to affect our ability to breathe. You may hear people having shallow breath, that kind of thing. So the lungs are often affected by grief. So being able to practice breath work will help you to not only help you release some of the trauma of the grief, but also be able to help your physical body continue to be able to operate at a good capacity, especially since we're probably also not taking care of ourselves very well as well on top of all that. So
And that's so true. I mean, the other guest, Heidi, had did say, because there are, and I don't, and I dislike using the word stages because there is no stages in grief.
right.
It's a journey. So when it's the rawness, it's either sometimes I always go, we either forget to eat or we overeat. And it
Yes.
depends on um, if you're an emotional eater. So there's no judgment here. It's just sometimes how our emotions work. And even when the journey continues, whether it's year 5 or year 10, our bodies are holding on to some wounds that we have never been able to express.
Right.
And we had Renee talk about the the trauma, right? Because there's trauma even in grief.
Yes.
And so a lot of times we make light of everything in some ways. And I think it's because most people are uncomfortable on having the heavy conversations. And this is why we're having these conversations, is to really bring an awareness and to sort of say, these are topics to talk about. Because the
Yes.
more we talk about them, the more we get to release them from our body. And the work that you're doing is so important. Like, I didn't realize that it stayed in the lungs.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and my son died like 16 years ago. And so it's probably one of the reasons why I have sometimes breathing issues. But I had
Yeah.
breathing issues from before because I have asthma. But it's also one of those things that at times we don't know what our body is carrying because we're so focused on our emotions.
Yeah. Right.
And we don't even make that connection that it is altogether. It is the mind body connection
Yes.
and it includes emotions.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. When you were talking, I was thinking of a story of someone who had immeasurable loss. And I'd also like to point out too, I know that we're talking about losing loved ones mostly here around the holidays because that seems to be, but there are other types of losses too.
Oh,
And
definitely.
and people are probably experiencing more than one because
Mhm.
you're experiencing the loss of a loved one, but you're also experiencing loss of, what you thought your life was going to look like, or, or any other things that compounds that loss. And I was thinking about someone who had experienced immeasurable loss. And then every time she was triggered, she felt like she was losing her breath.
Mm.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Every time she thought of what had happened, I can't breathe. And that's one of the ways that what's going on in the emotions and in the mental state totally affects our bodies and can create physical symptoms in the body that you may not realize. Again, we're disconnecting as well. So you may not connect that, oh my gosh, I'm having, bronchitis issues, that it's related to trauma and grief that you're still carrying with you. And as you said, there's no timeline on it. Could have been carrying it the entire time. Sometimes it may trigger more than others. And we often will just put it aside because we don't make that connection. You don't connect that, oh, I'm having these other issues. You don't connect that it's also related to the grief that you're experiencing as well. And so I think it's important, like you said, that we have these conversations because those are the things that people don't think about.
And I love how, and I didn't even think about it when I even asked you as as a guest. It was more about your expertise because you are a holistic health expert and the the integrative wellness. And now I'm realizing when you're talking about breath, because I'm using my line as caring, love, and loss in the same breath.
Yes,
And how sort of is synchronicity or whatever the word is in the sense of you're talking about it's our breath, and it really is.
yeah,
We carry everything in this one breath. It's love, it's loss, and you're so true of what you said about loss is a big umbrella.
yeah,
And for the holiday season, yes, we could be missing a person who is physically no longer here because of death. However, we can still miss a person who's physically not here because of estrangement. I was going to say
yes,
something else and it meant something else because I mispronounce words sometimes. Where families, for whatever
yeah,
reason, are not speaking to each other.
yes,
And there's
yes,
no judgment on that because none of us are going to know the reason for it.
right,
And so sometimes I feel that we need to give people the grace. I mean, I use the pillars of care in the sense of saying we need to give compassion to ourselves,
mhm,
right? Acknowledging our thoughts and feelings, releasing the guilt, the regrets, and the shame, and evolving to who we're becoming.
yes,
And when you say the breath work, that really encompasses all together because in breath work, we are giving ourselves that compassion,
exactly, exactly.
right? In breath
Yeah,
work, we're acknowledging our feelings and our thoughts.
yes,
We're also releasing in that breath work by breathing in and exhaling,
yes,
and also of evolving of who we are. Like in that moment, we become one with our breath.
yeah,
Ooh, you and I should work more together.
yeah. Well, and I'd also like to add too that some other benefits of the breath work too in the constructs of what we're talking about today is that it also like helps regulate our nervous system, which we get so stressed out around the holidays and when we're experiencing grief and when we're missing our people or whatever. We get so stressed out. The breath work helps regulate our nervous system. It also helps us to move the stuck emotional energy. Again, there's no timeline. It just changes from day to day. And, one day it's small emotion, next day it might be big emotion. So the breath works allows us to move those emotions through without them staying stuck in the body and then showing up later. Okay, so the breath work allows us to deal with that in that moment to allow it to move through without staying put. It also creates space for emotional release. Okay, we grief is an emotion itself, but it's also a state of mind that brings in even other emotions. So it also creates the space that allows us to feel those emotions without overwhelming us. Okay, I think sometimes we get overwhelmed when we start thinking about things. So it allows that. It also helps us to build resilience, uh, which allows us to respond to people rather than react during holiday triggers. Okay, it allows us just a little more grace when people are getting on our nerves nowadays. So we don't immediately react or lash out or whatever. And it also gives you what's the best way to say this? It gives you a little bit of control over something when it feels like everything else is uncontrollable.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And you mentioned a word, patience. I think as in or no, people get. I heard. I changed it to presence. You said when people get on our nerves. Um, it
That
is
might be an
holiday.
American saying.
No, no, because in the holiday times, there's a lot of added stress. And when we have the stress with grief and loss, it intensifies where sometimes we're, I don't want to say prickly, I guess we could say prickly, right? We're sensitive and sometimes maybe could be oversensitive, maybe it's not. It's just a lot of times it's the impact that we get either from words. And I love how you say that for grounding, no matter where we're going, whether it's going into the mall, because the malls, of course, have all this decorations, the music, it can actually be overstimulant sometimes.
Yeah,
Even sometimes going to an event could be overstimulation. And we do want that grounding aspect.
yeah,
And you're right, that breath. I mean, you gave three ways of breathing, and I love that. Right. And I think what I'd love to end on, if you're okay with that, is having to demonstrate one breathing practice. So that way we
okay,
can give our audience something so that way they have with them to say, you know what, I can use this right now when I'm feeling overstimulant, being overwhelmed, being just like too much of it,
yeah,
to ground into my own self of where I feel safe. Because that's really what we want to do is we want to have where the safety feels within our own self.
yeah. Okay, I'd love to share that. All right, so I know you asked for one, but do you mind if I give you two?
Nope.
Because because I have two that
That okay, Zach?
I think would be very, very beneficial for everyone. So the first you probably heard of, it's called box breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good for grounding. You can use it not only when you're feeling triggered, I use it sometimes when I have a hard time going to sleep. So box breathing is really good for grounding. And it's just what it sounds like. It's like you think of a box,